Right. Now, how do I know if I'm recording?
I think it is. The little red button is flashing.
Flashing. Okay, great. Okay, well, this is Santa Barbara County SELPA AT AAC Services Overview, specifically geared for OT. And I'm Lisa Foote, the SBC SELPA AT AAC Specialist. Oops. How do I have to go here? To go this way. Okay. So just Lauren, most of you who are here know my background, but I will share my background for everybody watching on YouTube later. So I am an OT that's been 14 years in practice, 12 in schools and 2 in home health care. And I'm basically an OT pivoting, as it says, into an AT-AAC position. And the way that started was when I was working at SBCEO. At that time, there was an assistive technology position. And I thought, well, I wonder what that person does. What do they do? And how is that different from OT? Because as OTs, you know, we do assistive technology as part of our practice framework. So that was always in the back of my mind. I didn't really know what the difference was. So I kind of just, you know, on my own sort of started looking into it. And then the other big piece was as a working in preschools with the kids with autism, I was just like, something is kind of missing. You know, like I knew about PECs from a long time ago when I worked at a group home with using the PECs as the visual schedule and, you know, requesting snack and a token board. But then there was like nothing else after that. And I didn't really, you know, I'm not a speech therapist. I didn't have any background in it, but I just had this feeling that something was missing, but I didn't know what it was, you know. So those were the two big pieces I think that kind of led me into looking more into assistive technology. So basically, I just on my own, I started to just go into AT related continuing education courses and ended up here in this position finally after 2014 is when I started the district and then started to take AT trainings. And so part of this presentation for OTs today is to help you guys kind of see what is the informal and formal similarities and differences between an AT provider or professional and an occupational therapist. General objectives today is understanding, you can read all that, understanding what assistive technology is and when do we discuss it, and then how it all connects together, and then how you would access support through SELPA, through myself when you would need to. Now, sorry, I'm watching Amber on my screen, so I'm wondering, okay, now I've hidden that. Okay. So for the OT objectives, like I said, what are the formal differences and similarities between OT and AT? I'm going to show you guys what the clinical assessment frameworks that are frequently used, and show you guys the website and the different online resources we have, and show you how to go about supporting students in different types of ways, and if you need to get further support through me. So that's the ed code definition of assistive technology: item, piece of equipment or product, system, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified, customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of children with disabilities. Why do we discuss this? It's usually because somebody can't do their task or access their curriculum. Is there something additional that could help them do this? So as OTs, we look at the skill of the child first. Can we help them build their motor skills? Great. There's their motor skills. Is there some other part of the puzzle that we're also adding that is assisting them? And usually that's a lot of low-tech assistive technology that occupational therapists tend to do with handwriting and motor skills and such. But you want it to be something that, you know, helps them do their task or access their goal or access their curriculum. And you discuss this every year as part of an IEP. So Everything starts with their present levels of performance. What are they currently doing? What are the tasks they're doing? How are they participating? What are their needs? And then you make your goals, and then you determine, they could already be using some assistive technology, or you determine, oh, there could be something we can add to this. The student's not making a lot of progress. Is there other technology we can use? Low tech, high tech, mid tech, whatever. And those discussions and what you choose to do should be noted in the special factors page and the accommodations page. I always tell all the OTs and anybody who wants to know, I like to duplicate what's said on the special factors and the accommodations page if it has something to do specifically with, a tool, a piece of equipment, whatnot. So for instance, if a student is actually benefiting a lot from having sort of bigger sensory equipment in the classroom, like, oh, they need a swing, or they really are helped by a trampoline, or anything like that. We don't really think of that as assistive technology, but it is actually assistive technology. And so I would tend to say, go ahead and put that on the special factors page, needs sensory equipment to regulate self and access their curriculum. And then you'd also put it on the accommodations page. What can happen is, people read one page or the other, and if it's only on one of the pages, they might miss it. Or, in terms of sensory, if that does become an important thing for a student to have access to equipment, unless it's kind of put on the special factors page, it won't probably be seen as something very important, and it might be seen as something that's optional to do. So if you really believe that, yes, this kid really needs this type of equipment to access or for their behavior or whatnot, I would put it on the special factors page. So it's seen as a robust, assistive technology need, versus just, oh, it's on accommodations. We could follow those, we could not. Maybe they need it, maybe they don't. If it's not that important, then maybe don't put it on the special factors page. But if it is, I make sure that it's there. And overall, you have to remember that assistive technology is not the goal, it's the tool, and it's the task first. And this is what's so fun to me about the overlap between OT and AT is when you start going into assistive technology, you learn all these assessment tools, which sound exactly like occupational therapy. So on the clinical assessing side, there's really basically no difference as far as I can tell. So this is just a comparison of an OT versus an assistive technology professional. The difference of an assistive technology professional in my mind is that, anybody can become an assistive technology professional. Typically it's going to be it's either going to be somebody in special education, a teacher, or it's going to be a rehab science person. So it's going to be SLP, OT, or PT. Those are the two main pools that people become, wanted to get that ATP credential. But the other side of who's doing ATP, are plenty of people who maybe just have high school degree or not a college degree, or people who already are blind, low vision, people who have disabilities already, who then go into the profession to then help other people. They will go through this route and usually get an ATP. And so you can see how much work you have to do to get qualified to take the ATP exam, which essentially is basically the same thing as taking the NBC OT exam. You would take it, pay a couple $100s to take it, pass it, you get the ATP after your name. Same thing, every couple of years you have to pay money and take continuing ed to keep that ATP. It's really, as an OT, it's kind of a personal choice if you feel like you want to go do that extra credential. If you feel like you want to be seen like that, or you want to market yourself like that, then people will do it. But I would say that as an OT, since we have such a broad education already, we really come well equipped to kind of like pivot into this, or if you're more interested in it, you can go into it. Because it really, when you start going to assistive technology trainings, they really just talk so much about assessing, which is not hard for us as OTs to do. I think we're better equipped than many to do that. So the next couple slides these are the two main assistive technology kind of frameworks that people use to assess. So you can just see how similar it is and how easy it would be for us to follow this. So the WADI is the biggest one that people tend to follow. These are all the different categories that you can look at assistive technology in. You might look at all of them with a student. You just might look at one of them with a student. There's a lot of different ways that you can use this. There's so many things on the website. You can give different, say you're on a team and somebody has questions, you can give the teacher the reading and math, you can give the speech therapist the communication, you can work on the writing, you can work on the ADLs. So it's really easy to just hand out these pieces of paper so people can start doing, kind of checking off, are there other things to try? And this is sort of above and beyond what you'll see later in terms of the SELPA forms, but I wanted to show you guys that this is out there. It's a very easy resource to use. So this is something that I have used in the past when I've done assistive technology. And sometimes when it's a parent request, I'll go ahead and whip through every single one of these to, double check that something is being done in every one of them, or something could be done or doesn't need to be done. Or sometimes it's just one or two.
Is there any specific qualification criteria to administer this assessment, or as OTs we can?
It's not a standardized assessment. It's a bunch of, like rating scales and checklists. And it's basically all these free resources from Wisconsin to just try to get people thinking about what technology could help students that you haven't been thinking about, or what you're already doing. So sometimes you could look at these checklists and be like, oh, well, they're already doing all this stuff. Great. And then you can kind of say, hey, to the parent, well, that we are doing a lot of assistive technology. We just didn't call it assistive technology, but many things that not just OT, but the rest of the team is doing can be considered assistive technology. And sometimes it just takes that education to the parent, because they might not think their student has any assistive technology, but they actually do. Or they might think, well, there's something else, there's some other technology out there, but no, there's a lot that's already being done. So I will use this to kind of set that out too, like, look what is being done. The other main one that everybody talks about is the SET framework, which looks completely familiar in terms of what we all understand as the PEO. So student, environment, task, tools. There you go. Of course, assistive technology is going to focus on the tools, whereas, we focus on the tools too, but it's not, it's within the occupation. So the WADI and the SET are the two main things that people go to in the assistive technology field to assess. And then the technology part will then come out of the task. And then that just takes, your research or your networking with other people or myself to figure out what could be out there that could match the needs of the student. So basically, pencil grip is the easiest thing to talk about, up to something major. So you do always want to consider the continuum. So just like the LRE, there could be low tech, there could be mid tech, there could be high tech. And, it just depends. Maybe students fine with low tech and they don't really need high tech. Maybe a student does better with high tech than low tech. And that can be something that's just like an ongoing dialogue to have with the whole team, because you could have a parent thinking that they want high tech, the student might do better with low tech. Then you've got to really sort of take the data and say, well, actually, this student is really doing better with this, that, or the other. I have the question marks in there because I'm like, what would a mid-tech motor support for writing be? I could not think of one. I'm like, low-tech pencil grips, lamp board, paper, raised line paper, what have you. High-tech, of course, is typing and keyboards. But what would be a mid-tech thing? I'm not quite sure. Anybody have an answer off the top of their head?
So keyboarding wouldn't be more mid-tech, and high-tech would be the Dynavox or the things like that are so specialized high-tech.
Well, this is just looking at the writing aspect. So if you look at the WADI, there's a whole section on the motor aspect of writing, and then there's another whole section on the composition aspect of writing. So we're not talking about, you know, Dynavox or whatever. That would be kind of more for communication, or yeah, it could be high tech for writing as well. But and so a lot of times I think what happens for OT is we work on this handwriting stuff, and there's kind of a fuzzy line between, well, is it motor, or is it the learning disability? Is it dyslexia, dysgraphia? Is it motor? And so that's the kind of thing that you really do have to kind of work with your teacher and work with your team to kind of suss out, because sometimes if it is more of a learning disability and the composition problem versus the motor problem, you know, is the OT really the person that needs to be intervening, or are you the person that then has to help figure out if there's something that the teacher can use technology wise? So I would often kind of flip between the two of those things, like, well, the student is really having a composition problems, but I'm not the teacher, but I know that's the area of breakdown. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of look at what different things might help with this, even though I'm not the teacher, but then team with the teacher and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And then eventually I could say, well, you know, the motor's this way, but the composition is really the problem. And here's what I've been doing, and here's what you can try to do. And so it's just going to be different from case to case. But you do want to look at the continuum of different things. These are the next 4 slides you'll see are all the same, kind of tongue in cheek a little bit, because really everybody on an IEP team kind of has the same role. But of course, as an OT or an SLP, you're able to sort of automatically go to the next level and do a little bit of extra assessment or looking into things because of your background, you know, because you're a rehab science, allied health person with some background, more than a teacher might have. So they're all kind of the same roles. Everybody should be kind of familiarized and working with each other and troubleshooting and going back and forth as much as you can. Does anybody have any specific questions about AT for their current caseloads? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, I'll go on. So here's the part. So now, how do we do this? What are the avenues that we do this, aside from all of the stuff I've just talked about? So there's 2 ways to access different supports. We have the AAC Google Site, so I'll show you that. This is the website framework that I've set up to be visual and sort of easy to look at and easy to find stuff. So it's a work in progress. There's not a ton of stuff on here, but the most important one will be the forms. Now you can see the site. I won't repeat everything I just said, but there's the forms. This is the guide that I was talking about. That's sort of the first step of having a discussion with the team. Now, if I go over to my next, can you see the assessment referral form now or no?
Yeah.
Okay, you can. Okay, so then that's the assessment referral form. This has more in-depth information that I would need to see prior to having, like I would be okaying with the case manager. Okay, yes, like we have everything in place, go ahead and generate the AP. Writing, same stuff, writing, reading, math, executive functioning, and then at the end is going to be the AAC and complex low incidence needs. And so this is the area, this is actually the area to stress with you guys, with occupational therapists, if we have students that have like never been tested, and you know the complex students at GV or GP or in other districts, we can get stuck a lot of times and, well, we're kind of doing this one same thing for years, and then other people on the team are doing other things in their silos. And these are kids that have every single person on their team: vision, speech, OT, PT, but sometimes all those things are not really brought together. And so I do think, if you're feeling frustrated with what you're doing with one of those cases, kind of step back and look at it from a bigger perspective and sort of this assistive technology perspective and look at their access and how they are doing things in with different people and is everybody matched up with how they're working with the student. And if nobody really knows the cognitive level of the student because he's never been tested, then again, that's kind of an opportunity to team and be like, well, how do the student access stuff normally? Well, how do we then have them access something that we could maybe get a cognitive level on? So, this is the stuff that I will be doing, helping teams out in a sort of in a team process too, if I'm doing an assessment, but I'm just, have that in your mind of like, okay, if I'm frustrated with this kind of case, maybe I don't have to think of it as just a fine motor case, maybe I'm just going to help the team in helping the team with the kid access everything throughout the day as sort of a consult. All right, now if I go back to my website, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's consult and collaborative form, and then this is the procedural handbook that just lists everything to do with the procedures, similar to what we did with the OT recently. And the rest of that Google site has different other pages. So it'll have AAC forms, lots of visuals for for AAC people to learn how to model. Okay, so the other link here is the Santa Barbara SELPA website that just has the link for the Google sites on that page as well. And then there's other related AT links there too, the WADI links there, those different outside links will be there for you to look at. And this is not to say like, okay, you have to do assistive technology assessments. It's just kind of giving you the background of the overlap and kind of making you feel empowered that there, it's understanding the overlap, and that if you see that you could help in that area, then please do that as part of your IEP team. I'm going to skip over this because I still can't get my iPad to get on Zoom. I probably need tech support from one of you guys. But Chrome extensions, we can look at that. Let me try that again. Okay. So Chrome extensions, mostly, I know you guys are at Santa Barbara Unified, so you're not really using Chromebooks, you're using iPads, but other districts will have kids on Chromebooks. And there's just like apps, there's just so many Chrome extensions, on and on. I've taken different courses here and there and just gotten on the Chrome extension store here and looked for things. So can you see this drop-down menu? This puzzle piece drops down and this lists all the different extensions. So these are just extensions I've put on here to kind of, I either don't have access or I have access, but there's co-writers there. This is called Equatio, and this is for math,
We can't see that.
You cannot see that. I don't understand why you can't see that. Let me try again. So, can you see that?
We see the web page that says Vimeo record.
Okay, so when I push my puzzle piece, can you see a drop-down menu or no?
No.
Okay. Well, then that won't work. Okay. Well, that's annoying. I'm not sure how to do that. Then the rest of these slides are just more lists of different things. So low tech, high tech, and all the different situations. Kind of just a prettier look at maybe and more detailed than what you're going to see on that guide for consideration form. And that's that. And there's some more resources at the end. So in terms of Chrome extensions, what you want to do is just go on your Google website and type in, Chrome extension store, and then there'll be all those things that you could look at. So you can type in dyslexia, you can type in reading, you can type in executive functioning, there's just all sorts of different ones to do. Read and write is the big one that people use. Co-writer and read and write are the big ones for helping with typing and composition. Kami is the one that, Kami, Kami is the one that is similar to basic, it's like a PDF filler and kind of does the same thing that SnapType does on an app. So you should be able to have kids, type on a PDF or type on a, worksheet. So those are, I would say Kami and the co-writer and the read and write are the top, kind of the top three that schools will use. And then Equatio is similar to read and write, but it's for math. So if you have any students that are using Mod Math on the iPad to type math equations, that's just a Chrome extension to do math. And then some of those, you have to look into the district to see what licenses the district has for what extensions. I'm always a little confused as to how that works everywhere. And now I won't really know how it works everywhere compared to what district, so.
Do you have a list of that anywhere of like, okay, you're having this concern, use this extension, or, try these things? That would be super helpful.
Yeah. Oh, well, so yes, I'm going to probably make a list on that website, but if you do, let me go back to that Google website that I made, because one of the coolest things, let's see, is, hold on. Now, can you see the website or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to, let's go to AT. If I click on AT, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this right here is a link for this other program in California called Open Access. So there's a link here there's an AAC link, there's an AT link, there's a UDL link. If you link here, they've curated a bunch of different things for the different needs. It's curated better than I can do, so that's why I just have it linked. But out of this, I'll probably pull a few other things and maybe make a list on our website if you want to look at that. So reading, writing. So what would you be interested? We can click on anything and kind of look at it.
Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, whatever
No.
you wanted, Anna.
I was gonna say vision or EF would be fun too.
Sure. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so talking calculator, all in one board. So the vision stuff, a lot of this stuff, if you have a vision specialist on your team, you can be bugging them about this because they should know most of this stuff. Tactile learning, like this is really great. And this is basically how people teach blind children, is through tactile stuff. So this just gives you, they've curated these different things for vision. And I think that's a good point. If you have a vision specialist, really try to team up with them and just make sure everybody's on the same page. Like what you're doing, falls in with vision, and what they're doing falls in with you, and that's all integrated. What you said, the EF, executive functioning?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Organizing, shifting, self-monitoring. I do have actually a list of executive functioning ones, and I'll put that on the Google site as well. Yeah, I have them listed in some notes from one of my continuing ed things, but not on me. So that's it. That's basically for OT. I just kind of wanted you guys to understand the overlap of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and how the overlap, the similarity. So the only difference is now I'm in this position and I'll probably get more specialized problems and then have to figure out more specialized technology solutions. And the way that I'm going to do that, if I don't know it, is of course network with other people and do the research, you know. And yes, as an OT, you know, you don't always have time to do that, and you don't have the, you know, you're not in that role. So this is a good way to finally get, for me to be able to do that and help everybody else do that, because now I get to research it and figure those things out and then talk to other people who are using those things. So
Could I ask a question?
Mhm.
So this is the first instance where I've been asked to specifically give my OT lens when determining the the device the student's gonna need.
Mhm.
And he seems really low functioning, isn't going to tolerate much. And I'm just wondering, are there specifics? Like, would this be an instance to use the Wadi, or like we're all trying to do a kind of an arena assessment because nobody really knows him. But the speech therapist was very, yeah, I need you to look and tell me what he can do for a device. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, right. So is the device, is it just a trial? The device being trialed is just like an iPad with an app on it, correct?
Probably, I don't even know. Like they're doing a speech assessment. We're all this, yeah, it's the triennial. But yeah, the student doesn't currently have a device. So it's kind of a gray area of what should I be doing aside from my regular testing.
Okay, aside from your, if your regular testing, you know, if you think the team's gonna be looking at a high tech, you know, an AAC software on an iPad, then, you know, you would want to see how that student use an iPad? What do they do on an iPad now? Do they just shake it, or do they interact with anything on the iPad? You know, what size icons are they pressing, you know? Or like maybe the kid activates a phone already, you know, a parent's phone. So you kind of want to look at, what their functional uses of it already. Regardless of how functional the activity is, you can look at how they're accessing it. So for instance, like the student who constantly just continues to search the same type of videos on YouTube. You can look at, well, they're able to select the video and they're able to, you know, select whatever, you know, you can look at that and then extrapolate that out to, okay, yeah, they can, they'll probably be able to push directly access it. And if you know right away the student is accessing an iPad with his finger, there's nothing really more to do. And then for motor access, but then does it become an issue of the cognitive thing or the too much visual information? So really you just look at how they're using it functionally now. And then when the team, like if the team picks different devices to trial, then you'd observe them using that. You'd go observe the trial and see if you see anything that is interfering with the access. So if, you know, maybe the motor access isn't, they keep missing, you know, the button, can you, you know, make the, you go into the settings and see if, oh, I can make the, you know, make the borders bigger so the keys are more separated, you know, or there's, you know, the features to like change the color so the contrast is better, that kind of thing. Or you see that, you know, a key, you know, the key guard, well, maybe they need a key guard, you know. And again, if you're like, oh, I don't know, like that would be an opportunity to call, you know, or, you know, do the request for the support, and we can just talk about it again and be like, okay, we'll try this or try that. Since you're already involved in an assessment, it's kind of like, then I can coach from my end of, okay, we'll try this while you're in your next session or during the next trial. Because that is the aspect of one thing that I saw over the years was, oh, well, we just gave this kid an iPad and they're just stimming on it, you know. But how do you know, I'm still like, well, were they stimming on it? Are they stimming on it? Like you kind of then have to just look at we don't really know because they can't communicate. Maybe they're exploring, maybe they're not. So you just analyze again. You just always are observing and analyzing what it looks like they're doing. If that makes sense.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
in terms of preschool, and the other part of OT that I think comes into the AAC business is the, first of all, if you have a student that has AAC, really do take it upon yourself to try to play with it a little bit and see if you can incorporate it into your session, because the goal is really for everybody to be modeling and using it. But it is a big hump to get over. It's hard, but if you are in a setting that, like the autism classroom at Cleveland, there's 4 or 5 kids with iPads, since you're in that set, none of you are in that setting, but if you were to be in that setting, it's really important to start being able to like feel comfortable and use it. And once you start doing it, you kind of can still do your regular OT session. You just have this other layer in there, and that's going to support the student and support your interaction with the student actually too. And then trying to help the teachers figure out how to use it, how to incorporate it. So like when I do this for the teachers, for the teachers, I would say, okay, well, we know that students will use their AAC for weather, what's the weather? And like, what's the day of the week? It's Monday, that's what they tend to do on the AAC. Or what snack do you want? Or yes or no. But when they're actually really engaged in activity is when you actually want to kind of start using that AAC, because they're like, you're in that moment of engagement and excitement. And then they start understanding, oh, this is communication. This is when I could use it, but it has to be an engaging activity. So you kind of can help teachers figure out, well, you could think of it just as, what are the activities this kid likes most of the day? Oh, they love the swing, or they love playing with sensory stuff. And then, try to figure out those words that they could model while playing with their putty, or on the swing, or jumping up and down. There's so many things that could be modeled, and it's often those types of activities that the kids really like. But then those are the ones that the language isn't being modeled in. And I think that if you're modeling the language in that really fun activity, that's when connections are going to be made for them. So that's a really nice area, I think, as an OT to kind of consult and help the teachers with, and the paras, for sure, the paras too. You think of all of the verbal cues that we give, and all those verbal cues can be modeled on an AAC, put in, take out, push, pull. So if you see a student that has a device, like just go for it and see if you can just play around with it. And it's okay if you take 10 minutes of your session and, the student can see that you're trying to communicate with them. So that's good. So anyway, thanks for coming. That was like my test run.
Thank you for the info. Will we be getting a copy of that presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I'll send you the presentation, and I will, just keep looking back at that Google site. I think that's where I'm pretty much just trying to put everything, because I think it's easier for people to remember because it's visual. And you'll see all the AAC modeling visuals on there. So there'll be more AT stuff on there too. If I go into doing more training next year, will it be more AT based versus AAC based? Because the training, both the open access program won't do an AAC training with me as the contact person, because I'm not a speech therapist. So I will do the AT thread. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for coming. I'll send that to you tomorrow. All right, bye everybody.
Thanks, Lisa. See ya.
Bye.